Hello. First of all, I would like to thank Red, my publisher. Actually, this is the third book released by A&M Buddha Press. And in this book, titled Return to Roots, Life Sketches of Southern Hubei, it's a collection actually of 16 personal or travel essays in which I talk about my experience after returning to my home place, Jinzhou. Actually, one of the oldest and most important Chinese tradition is to return to one's roots. That is, we are getting old. After retirement, people would usually go back to the original place where they are going to enjoy the retirement and live together with the kinsmen or be buried among their ancestors. So this is what I'm going to in this book. The first passage I'm going to read is from the first essay titled Winning from Upstairs. In this essay, I talk about how I experienced when I first arrived in my native place after China reopened its door after COVID-19 pandemic. After traveling across as many as 16 time zones, I finally arrived in Jinzhou for a lengthy stay with my mother. As this was the first time to leave my own home in Vancouver since the outbreak of the pandemic, I felt as expectant as any long-lost wanderer returning to his place of origin. Here and now, I could readily eat the best native foods I had been dreaming about, visit my closer relatives, and hang around with my oldest friends. With the typical Chinese cultural personality, I had already been looking forward to spending my last years in the greater Jinzhou area or returning to my roots like a fallen leaf, as the ancient proverb goes. However, no sooner had I got out of my brother's car than I found myself trapped in an unwelcome situation, for there was a major renovation project going on in the whole neighborhood. While I had to hop around ditches as well as piles of dirt, debris, and building materials, I was bugged every second by all kinds of construction noises until late in the evening. Worse still, when I went to bed around 11 o'clock and tried to get some sleep, I heard a girl beginning to cry aloud right above my mom's condo suite. The next morning, my mom told me that the girl was the 3-year-young great-granddaughter of Direct Chin, one of her former colleagues before retirement. What's wrong with the child? I wondered aloud. Nothing really wrong, my mom explained. The family is taking her to every kind of doctor, but nobody found any problem. She just enjoyed crying. That's all. Okay. The second passage I'm going to read is from my personal essay titled Muse in the Flesh, in which I celebrate my first crush I re-encountered in 2019, and after the re-encounter, I wrote up more than 200 love poems, and more than half of them have already been published individually, and also have written several books, including a civil romance, a cultural novel, especially a trilogy called The True Tours, which is going to be released in a few weeks by a Canadian-based publisher in Vancouver. So this is the place where I describe how she has been inspiring force to me. No matter what, don't bully me, literally because I'm illiterate. Although I have written and published a lot of poetry and prose for her, but actually she doesn't know much English, except 26 letters. Never did I mean to, however, as a matter of fact, I have written about 150 love poems in English and gotten at least 100 published online or in print, more than any other poetry authors, Chinese or non-Chinese, had ever done to my best knowledge. In addition, I have written a trilogy, a novel and more than 40 short stories over the past 2 years, most of which had been accepted or published already, all about her. As my muse in the flesh, Hua had become an ever-present fictional character in my works, so to speak. Though I used a different name, everything I had written about her, or rather about us, was based on our true experiences. If she had known what I had actually written, she would have been ready to kill me, if not die of shame on the spot. But the problem with me was that I was simply unable to write anything else. Although, indeed, being my unfailing inspirer, she must live in my poetry and prose as a real person rather than a fictionalized persona. But for me, I said in a strong self-defense note, writing about our intimacies is another way of making love with you. Like masturbation, it should be a forgiving sin. And the next passage I'm going to read is from a personal essay titled Meeting Van Gogh in my native town, where I treated my oldest friend in my lifetime, whose name is Yao. For the first time in half a century, I returned to Songzi, my native town, located close to the Yangtze River, where I decided to spend a whole week trying to fulfill my growing nostalgic needs. After much sniffing around, I finally found Yao, my oldest friend who was said to have fallen mentally ill in his mid-30s, and invited him for the dinner party at Du, a most famous local restaurant. Early in the evening of October 15th, he showed up both in good time and in good spirits, together with Bao, our mutual friend, a music teacher from Songzi Old Age College. Lean, white-haired, Yao walked shakily towards me with a cane in his right hand. "So, you already in?" he said, his eyes sparkling with wonder. Long time no see. Where did we see each other last time?" Bao butted in. 51 years ago, I replied. And in the ending of the essay I wrote, as I say it, Yao is an clear-minded, as if not more than Bao and myself. But how come people keep saying that he is an old homebody who has been suffering from severe mental disorders? From his demeanor, he is obviously able to think logically, speak intelligently, and move around appropriately. When it comes to fine arts or literary writing, he does get overly hyped about, and take too much pride in his creations, as Bao has warned me beforehand. But isn't that characteristic of any noble artist? When we finished our dinner, I asked Bao to send Yao back to his spacious condo unit, bought by the latter's younger brother, who had just retired as the head of the Provincial Department of Health. "Farewell, dudes," I said to both of them. "I will see you when I see you." "I'm in with all my heart," Yao said, sounding as devoted to his art as Van Gogh himself, though a bit out of tune. Okay, the last passage I'm going to read is from a personal essay titled Brooming the Graveyard. Brooming the Graveyard stands for one of the oldest and most important traditions in China's cultural history. So to celebrate this tradition, and I wrote about my personal experience brooming the graveyard with my younger brother Yun. So that's the ending passage. So, this long tradition of ancestry worshipping may have a pragmatic significance at all. After all, I told myself, long before this idea crossed my mind, I had done quite a lot of studies and thinking about feng shui. For instance, I know well that if a parent is buried on a better feng shui spot, and thus lives in a better yin residence after death, or if a graveyard is situated against a hill at the back in a place facing towards the south, where there is water running, the descendants would be karma'd to receive more blessings. But if they fail to perform the filial duties, they would never be able to get any real benefits. Only when good feng shui elements, when matched with kind human deeds, can the best result be achieved. As in Yun's case, thinking along this line, I become accurately aware of the reason why Chinese people have been following the tradition almost blindly since the beginning of time. What makes all the difference is whether one believes in certain things before one actually takes an action or otherwise. For me, I have to see some hard evidence or go through testimonial experience before I can subscribe to a belief. But for Yun, my younger brother, who has had much less formal education and been around the world in a much more limited way, faith is something he has embraced unconditionally. By giving everything the benefit of doubt, with or without intention, he is able to live a healthier and happier life. Perhaps all the education I have received, coupled with all the thinking I have done and all the life experiences I have undergone both in the Eastern and Western worlds, has only made me a pragmatist or pessimistic cynic, I thought. Perhaps I should bloom my own mind. First of all, thank you. That's all.